Cecilie Wian and Per Thorsheim. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You two, whenever I think of passwords, I think of you two now. So it's very suiting.
That's
very
fair.
suiting to have you both as a part of the Passwords and Their Managers episode. Why do you love passwords so much?
Well, for me, it's very easy. It's his fault.
And I can give perhaps a little bit longer explanation on that. Well, love, I would rather say fascination. And it all started with a penetration test that I did maybe like 24, 25 years ago against a Fortune 500 company. And I managed to get domain administrator access for that entire company in a day because a single individual was using the word password as hence password. And that was on day one of the assignment. And I was beyond surprised that just something as simple as a password and the word password, and I was domain administrator in a Fortune 500 company. That shouldn't be possible. That shouldn't be possible today. That shouldn't be possible back then. And since then, this has been a fascination. I can safely say an obsession since back then.
Well, so the reason why I ended up being so fascinated by passwords is because I did listen to one of Per's talks. And he talked about password, and he talked about the type of password people chose. And all I could see was the humanity, like the users, and how they are, what kind of personality they have, worries they have, joys they have in their life. And it really fascinated me that this tiny, tiny key that is such a great reflection of who they are as people can protect so many important systems. And then I caught the password bug.
Got the password bug.
Yeah.
Nice. What do you two work with in your daily life?
Well, I work at a company called Bouvet, which is a consultancy, and I work with abusability testing. Essentially, what can I do with the software that you make, your apps, your websites, your everything? Can I hurt people? Especially, have you accidentally made something cruel? That is my expertise to figure out.
Somewhere between passwords and pen testing then.
Yeah.
And she's frighteningly good at finding issues with your systems that can be used and abused to harm other people. So that's the ad for Cecilie and Bouvet. Myself, by day, I'm working as a CISO within the banking finance industry, and by night and afternoons and weekends and holidays, it's a lot about passwords and anything really that you can relate to digital authentication.
Cool. And I'll start off my first question then. I won't throw any companies under the bus here, but there was one company that had an unfortunate security incident which led to, I'm not really sure the details, but I'll ask you, are password managers safe? Or what's the worst that can happen?
They are safe, but it really depends on the context you put them into. You will be allowed to set the letter A or the number 1 as your master password. Guess what? It's not good enough. So that's a part of the equation here. There are also many other issues related to how you used to choose them, and those are important. So password manager by itself isn't secure, but it does help you a lot in improving your security. But there are some things that you need to take care of, even if you get a password manager.
Using a password manager is far safer than any other system or solution people come up with. It's surprising when I tell people, you know what, because people tell me all the time, I don't need a password manager, I have a system. And I tell them, yeah, but the amount of time you put into that system is far less than the amount of time that people who are really good at linguistic use to crack your system, yours and everybody else's systems. With the trend of AI, it's starting to dawn on people that maybe computer can start to guess the things that they figured out. And I'm glad they're starting to realize it, but it's been true for a long time. Having a system is terrible.
Yeah. And before Password Manager, I had one of those systems, and I still kind of have one for, whatever. I have Password Manager. Don't kill me.
Yeah.
But how different are our systems? Do we actually have, like, we all think we're being so smart, but we're all like along the same sort of path of system, right?
I mean, if there are 5 billion people on this planet, there are 5 billion different ways of generating and remembering passwords. I mean, now we're speaking English, and your mother tongue is English, so chances of you using a Norwegian word as your password is pretty slim. Most probably you're using an English word or English name. Now, if you're from the Philippines, or if you are from Russia, or if you are from Greece, again, chances are you will not be using Norwegian words as your password. And that's just the languages. But then you can also see differences between genders. Men and women tend to choose different types of passwords. If you go to a specific type of workplace, like a hospital, you will see that passwords there are very different from when they are being used by, let's say, military personnel. Because we need a way to remember those passwords, and that is something that we found in our surroundings. So I have a green screen behind me. Hey, perfect password, green screen, easy to remember, I got it here. And a lot of people do that, and that's a lot of the fascination into this.
And to be honest, I can't blame them for making not so good systems, because the context, when you sit and look at your computer and the computer prompts you to say, like, type a password, that is not a creative space. You don't have a lot of time to think through the process and so on. So what you do is, like, you're in the stress situation and you have this tiny little obstacle, and then you do this. Blue something. Oh, I'll add a number, and also
it's Wednesday today.
My name. Yeah. It's the same things that keeps happening. So while I agree with Per that in theory we should be able to have like one system per person, that is not what's gonna happen. A lot of people do the same thing. They have like small nuances, like one person adds 33 and another adds 11, but in essence it's the same. It's highly guessable.
Yeah. We are incredibly predictable as humans, and that applies to passwords. It also applies to many other things that we do in life. There are, you just have ways of doing things, and if somebody else observes you, they can learn, how you make your coffee, or how you brush your teeth, or how you log onto your computer. Yes, well, we are looking into how people create passwords, and that is a lot of psychology. That is machine learning. That is anything you can really imagine.
So if we as people are struggling with adopting password managers, right? In our personal lives, I think in my password manager, I have like 210 accounts. And Cecilie, you work with this for organizations.
Yeah.
How has that been? I just can imagine how many passwords that would be going into those sort of vaults.
A lot of very different passwords, I would hope. But it surprises me how few companies who actually have this software as a part of their portfolio of security software, because it's really user friendly and direct. It's a really good way of helping the user directly to have more secure behavior, be able to make more secure choices. It's super easy and it's kind of cheap. So I'm really surprised that not a lot of more companies have this as a part of their portfolio. And especially it depends on your risk profile, of course, but some of these softwares allow you to share passwords safely. And that is a brilliant feature, because it means that you safely store passwords and you can safely update them, because nobody remembers what the password was anyway. So you can discreetly update passwords without having to explain to anyone what is going on.
And these enterprise password managers, I'll call them that. I know they're much more privileged access. There's big identity cloud. Are they really different than the one that I have on my phone? Not going to say which one I have because I'm skeptical of all the people listening to this, but Is there a big difference between the one I have on my phone and some, I don't know, CyberArk or one of those big American companies that offer those?
That,
Oh, well, there's a million tiny nuances and solutions, but some of them are both for enterprises and for private use. Those are really easy, and those are really easy to onboard people onto, because it means that it's understandable why the effort of adding all their password makes sense for the user. The more let's say corporate only password managers or systems, they can be more difficult to persuade people to actually use because it doesn't make sense. It's a lot of hassle and there's a low return for the user. It's a huge return for the company, but for the user, there's a low return.
and neither one of us have any kickbacks here from any
providers.
So we can say that. But if I would recommend that if an enterprise is to purchase a password manager, I would also look into getting a deal where your employees are allowed to use this for personal use together with their close family, the people they actually live with. Because if you don't, then all employees, they have some kind of system. Maybe they have their own password manager for personal use. And suddenly they essentially end up with having two different systems that are supposed to do the same thing. So again, tip to all the enterprises out there, get a deal for password manager where you also get the opportunity to allow the employees and their close family to use the same product for their own personal accounts.
And can I add, because it's easy to think that, you have the work passwords, they need to be protected. But remember how phishing works. The break-ins are not necessarily within the office accounts. It might as well be the private email or their private computers. You really want your employees to have a good password hygiene in their private lives as well as their corporate part.
Why is that?
Because my private computer could give you access to my employer, no matter how separate, and I have a very separate setup. Still, it makes me more vulnerable.
Right. And
if you know all my Instagram and Facebook and all my private pictures, it would be easier to persuade me to do things that I might not else want to do.
Right.
Install this software on your work computer, or you will not have any of your pictures.
Yeah. And just like we are talking about supply chain attacks in the, should I say, professional world of security, we should also remember that your employees, your humans working alongside you, they can be targets as well, even as private persons. So whatever systems you have back home, as an example, there's a higher possibility that people are using the same password for personal accounts, just like they're using for the work accounts. So I breach your local golf club and get your password. That's the same password you're using for your work account. Ta-da.
There are probably numbers like research behind these, right?
Well, usually we say that you will find that a vast majority, that will be 60% or more, are actually reusing the same password across multiple accounts. One thing that we don't have that much research into yet is the combination of mixing work passwords with personal passwords. But yes, it most definitely do happen.
However, there was a research a few years ago where they asked people, do you have different passwords between different accounts? And people said yes, because they have a system. But really, it is the same password with tiny differences. Yeah. Like it would say Facebook on their Facebook account. Like in essence, it's the same password. But the user, who are not trained in thinking the way we do, will think of it as different passwords, but it's not.
And here's a question for you, Robby. Two questions for you. And you're cheating a little bit because you're using a password manager, but here are two questions that I do ask a lot of people. The first question is, how many passwords do you have? And you don't have to answer me now, but I usually ask people to think for 10 seconds before answering that. And of course, it's just a random number. It can be, well, I have 10 passwords, I have 100 passwords. In reality, they don't know. The second question I ask is, how many accounts do you have? Because that's something very, very different from asking how many passwords do you have. And the third question, which I just add just for the fun of it, is to ask, did you include your PIN codes in the number of passwords? Because people don't do that. PINs are something completely different than passwords, but they're not. It's the same thing. It's a memorable secret. And you have quite a few PIN codes as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks to the fact that I have a password manager, I can answer 2 of those 3 at least. But yeah, I don't want to say the numbers. I know I have 200 accounts in my thing. There's a lot of password reusage, but those are for accounts that I feel that are just completely, go ahead and have access to it. Go ahead.
But and Robby, be honest now. Are you reusing the same PIN code across 2 or more devices or services? Like your phone and your payment card, as an example.
Not my payment card on my phone, but I know that there's if it's a 4-digit or for a 6-digit, I'm very guilty there. I just realized that that is a very big security risk, actually.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but this again just shows that, well even you, Robby, you're human. Yeah. We do this. And why? Because, well, first of all, we do it because it's easier. And some of us, I would assume you as well, may have put some thought into the risk of doing so and found that the risk is acceptable. A vast majority, again, and this is just something I'm saying, is I don't think the vast majority have actually thought it through at all. And that's a risk to them.
I forgot to realize that those PIN codes, when your Face ID doesn't work because you're wearing glasses or something, that little PIN code, I just forgot about that. I didn't think that was a password anymore for some reason. But yeah, it is. But Per, now you're a CISO, right? So I assume that you have taken the battle to try to get some budget for having a password manager for your employees. What sort of pushback did you get in that process? What are the arguments you used?
Getting a password manager doesn't have to be that much of a fight. But I would say that what is harder with a password manager to get it into an enterprise is to actually convince everybody to use it. Because if not everybody is using it, if like 50% is starting to use it and the others won't, then, well, half your staff may represent a higher security risk to your organization than the other half, and you're only as secure as your weakest point. And enterprise password managers or password managers in general can be a hassle to a lot of people. I'm not going to say that all of them are user friendly at all. Personally, I say that I would never introduce a password manager to my now retired parents because they don't need it. They are using a much simpler password manager, and that's called pen and paper.
Yep. I actually bought my parents a password manager for Christmas one year, and they never used it. 73 years old. Didn't want to use it. Shocker.
Don't want to use it, yeah. And that's something that you need to take into account when doing this as well. Yeah.
Of course. But as a part of that process, I guess you have to sell in the value of a password manager to these employees. So Cecilie, when you've, first of all, you have had these sort of projects where you're helping to implement this, right? What sort of techniques or how do you start about that conversation? Hey, this is important for you.
So one of the big pushbacks that I get is that passwords are considered private. That is your private responsibility. So the answer would be like, but shouldn't we just teach them to make better password? And the answer to that is, how about instead of trying to add a lot of time and effort to teaching people to do something they are not physically able to fulfill, instead give them some assistance? Isn't that a nicer way to approach the problem? Because it is not physically possible, even as a hobby, if you have password as a hobby, to remember all the very complex passwords that you need in your everyday. So this is the kind of pushback we get when we try to implement it or raise the concern at all. In addition, there's a question about, oh, but they're expensive, and what is the cheapest one? A lot of companies went for the cheapest one, and they had an interesting update the 23rd of December this year. I will not mention name, but it was a bitter lesson. Don't go for the cheapest one. Do the proper work. Do assessment. What do you need? What do they provide? Do the whole shebang, not just pick one because I've heard of that one. With just like any other acquisition of software, do the proper research. Not just choose one off the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are the main use cases that clients that you talk to, like the ones that have actually like, okay, cool, we'll do this 100%. Like, are they using it for, what are some of these cases, the main ones?
So a lot of companies have a very diverse profile. They have the techies, the early adopters, the ones who are already using their open source self-developed password manager type of software, and they already have like intricate password routines. They want something that is secure, like is the cryptography good enough, and so on. They have that kind of questions. They do not care about usability at all. And then you have the rest, the middle ground, and then you have like the people who says, you know what, I'm not a techie at all. Do I really need this? I'm not sure if my passwords protect any important secrets because I just design stuff. I just draw things. I just make early prototypes of company secrets. So you have a diverse profile of people who will be needing to use preferably the same system. So you have to consider who is your employees. And please don't forget the non-tech users. Don't ignore your administrative personnel because they do absolutely protect really valuable secrets.
And we could also put into this mix that password managers today, a lot of them at least, they also offer to work as a two-factor authentication device for you as well. A one-time password generator, more or less, or one-time code generator. So that by itself is I would say, key selling point for investing in a password manager for enterprise use.
Especially in public sector, where unions have had opinions about who covers the cost of receiving the text message on the device.
Oh, yeah.
This is sometimes we end up in conversations that it can be difficult to understand, but are like principle discussions. And we can just bypass those difficult principle discussion by, we already have a solution for this. Can we just get things more secure, please?
Yeah, because I was kayaking one time and fell in, got stung by a jellyfish. My iPhone died, right? I had me thinking I'm so smart. I have a password manager. I have two-factor and everything. But guess what? If you have a password manager and two-factor or anything, you don't know your passwords anymore. And you don't have access to your Authy or your Google Authenticator or whatever. And I forgot how I solved that. But I got everything back. It was a very, very stressful process. So do you have any tips for like a mind map, just like a checklist for what you should be having control of before you do these sort of changes?
Before you lose your phone?
I'm so old, Robby, that I can bring back a word that you youngsters haven't heard for a long time. Backup.
Backup, yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So password managers today, they do have backup capabilities, or they will synchronize your data to the cloud in an encrypted blob, so they're sort of safe in there. And for two-factor authentication, there are also today there are OTP generators that offers backup solutions. But if you go back, 4, 5, 6 years ago, you would see that a lot of OTP generators, these apps that are generating these 6-digit codes for you, they didn't have any backup solutions at all. So if you broke your phone, if you lost your phone, if it suddenly died because the battery ran out, then you were out of luck. And we would just realize once again, yes, we need backup. It's that simple, I guess.
The future of passwords, we have face recognition, or some people have fingerprint recognition. But again, you have those, but when I have my glasses on or something, then I need to press in that pin, and I have that pin everywhere, as you just highlighted. So what is the future around that sort of...
passwords and pins are not going away in my lifetime, at least, and I intend to stay in this place for quite a few more years. And there are many reasons for why passwords are not going away. I mean, when you say you have biometrics on your phone using your thumb or your face, yes, but before you can use that, when you turn off and on your phone again, you have to enter a PIN code, and you can't get away from that PIN code. Now, you could change the the PIN code into a password if you want. Most people don't know that instead of a PIN, you can actually have a password on your phone, but that will probably be more, time consuming and annoying to type in, but you can. But that is to enable the use of biometrics. And in general, as you see biometrics used in phones today, my claim is that it is a usability feature first and foremost because it's easier. And there is a couple of security features along this, like as an example, when you're using your thumb or your face, obviously nobody can eavesdrop and see what kind of PIN code you're typing in on your phone. But that was never a big problem in the first place. So biometrics today is more of a usability feature than a security feature, in my opinion. Yeah. And then we can also talk about the risk analysis and the business analysis of passwords. Replacing passwords is going to cost a lot of money. In many cases, there is no risk analysis justifying the replacement of passwords. And in other cases, there is no business case. It's just too expensive to replace passwords with something else. So based on that, I say passwords are never going away. We will have to deal with them forever.
When a company's okay, we're going to start with this password manager journey for the enterprise. Do they start with like the developers because developers have a lot of very, very sensitive passwords that they need to share and have just at the right time that nobody takes from them? Do they start with like the crown jewel, or is it kind of, hey, everybody, just have this, here you go?
Well, it's pretty easy to get developers on board when it comes to password managers. They are often familiar with the software. They understand why it's required. They appreciate having the support from their employer. So you don't really have to put a lot of effort into it. You just announce that this will happen, and then they will be on you like, and when will it happen? I was ready yesterday. Those are the early adopters. Those are fantastic to work with. They will also, where you need to put the focus and attention is the late adopters, the ones who are struggling to understand why it's relevant for them. But if I can come with some advice, what I usually tell those late adopters, the ones that kind of putting this off because I'm not sure. It takes an hour. It takes about an hour to set up a password manager, get familiar and add enough password for this to be useful for you. 1 hour of your life. And if it's really painful, invite a friend over with a bottle of wine and do it then. Right. It's not a problem to acknowledge that setting up a password manager and adding a lot of password is boring. It is boring. That's why we're doing it. So we can stop doing the boring stuff. Forget about the boring stuff and just do the easy stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess if you're going to do that, prioritize that hour. It's just start with your most important services that you need to have. You should have a long password for.
Absolutely, and in most important services means most vulnerable services, but also most used services, which for a lot of people is their social media accounts and email.
Social media and email. That's where I started on mine at least. Yeah. And then and while you're there, turn on two-factor. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But use the security champion principle when it comes to password managers. Brag about, let people show off that, I've done this thing. I get a sticker to put on my computer to show that, what, I've already done it. I now have the moral high ground when we talk about passwords because I have a password manager. Use those positive feelings.
Yeah. And I would assume it's a very positive conversation for you to have going to like your employees saying, hey, by the way, we got you something that's going to be very useful for you in your personal life. And then, while you're pitching that in, maybe use the time to show a couple cases where it's actually useful, why it's useful for the business to have it. I don't know, how'd you do that, Per?
Well, just show people how it works. I mean, I can go to work and I pull up my laptop, I go to some website where I want to log in. It could be Facebook for that matter. And as soon as I enter the website of Facebook, my username and my password is automatically filled in by my password manager, and I just click log in. I have no idea what my Facebook password is. I haven't known it for 10, 15 years since I started using a password manager. My Facebook password is, 30, 40, 50 characters long, completely random. That's it. It's that easy. It's just getting past that, the first step, that 1 hour, as Cecilie says, with a bottle of wine. And as soon as you have put in the most important accounts for you into the password manager and you start using it in your daily life, you will see that was a really good investment doing that 1 hour of initial configuration.
Right. Kind of a random question, but as long as your password is at like 16, 17 characters, it's going to take them millions of years to calculate the...
It's even lower than that. We do say that if you are in the area of 11, 12, 13 characters, and it is completely random, this is very important. As long as it is completely random, generated by a computer, it is essentially impossible to brute force it, no matter who you are. Not just state-sponsored actors, but the biggest states in the world will not be able, with the technology today, to crack a totally random 12, 13, 14 character password. It's just not possible. There are too many combinations.
Yeah, and they talk about this quantum computer thing. So one day that will be reality, but that's far off in the future, or not so far off?
Well, it might come, but here's something that shouldn't be shocking to you. Coming from a passwords crazy guy, passwords are not enough. You should be using some kind of two-factor authentication as well for important accounts, for work accounts, and for your email. Your email is, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she barely knows what email is. She never uses it. But again, an email account, your personal email account, that is basically the key to a large part of your digital life. And it must be protected with more than just a strong password.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts for the future passwords?
Yeah, well, future passwords. For the people who are still not sure if using a password managers is worth it, think about this. Where is all your pictures? They're on Google Pictures and they're on Instagram and they're everywhere. You probably don't have any physical pictures. That means for someone, this is an angle to blackmail you into giving them money. Because it's difficult to secure all your digital life without a proper password manager.
Yeah.
And everybody has something to lose, even the non-techie ones.
Well, thank you too for sharing your experience and your expertise around passwords. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, as you say, so I guess you two aren't going away either. So then that's positive.
We'll be doing passwords for the next, what should we say, Cecilie? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? We'll see.
As long as passwords are there.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Essentially. Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best of luck at PasswordsCon. Here's the link. Boom.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.